Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel EcoFix, and this video is about the first chapter of Indian economic development. Chapter 1, Indian economy on the eve of independence. In this chapter, we mainly talk about the three things, which is first of all, how was the Indian economy before the advent of British rule? That means the condition, or how basically can we characterize the economy of India before the Britishers came to rule in India, alright? The second which we talk about is the condition of the following sectors. Now, after the advent of British rule, there were certain policies which were taken by the Britishers, and they had certain impact on the six sectors which we will be studying about. So, the condition of the sectors as a consequence of the policies which were taken by the Britishers will be explained in this chapter, and it is an important part. The third part is the critical appraisal of the steps which were taken by the Britishers. Now, whatever steps they had taken had some positive and had some negative effects on the Indian economy, right? Even after they left, they had certain impact. Now, what was that impact? How was it positive? How was it negative? Also, we will study about it. This comes for 6 marks, and although in your NCERT, clearly the positive points have not been mentioned कि ये positive points है, but they have been basically hidden in the explanation. So that is something which you can also write on your own, right? It comes for 6 marks and it is very important. Now these are some basic questions which I have actually taken down from this chapter. If you have done these questions, then your chapter is complete basically, alright? Although you have to do NCERT back questions as well, they are also very important, but these are the main questions. So you can either answer them simultaneously while you watch the video, or after watching the entire video, you can come back to these questions and then write them yourself, the answers. Alright? Now the first question is, how was the Indian economy before the advent of British rule? Two main points. First of all, agricultural economy, and secondly, well known for handicraft. So agriculture was the main source of livelihood for most of the people. Alright. Second is, it was well known for its handicrafts in the field of textiles and stoneworks and many other fields as well. But the main reason why they were well known and they had a reputation was, first of all, because of the fine quality of the material they used, and secondly, the high standards of craftsmanship. Now, one important one marker is that individual attempts which were made to estimate India's national and per capita income. They were done by 5 people: Dadabhai Naoroji, William Digby, Finlay Shiras, V.K.R.V. Rao, and R.C. Desai. It was the Rao's results which were considered the most significant. This comes for 5 marks. Learn these 5 names. Now we come to the second part of the chapter, where we will study the condition of the various sectors, 6 sectors under the British rule. The first one of them is agriculture. Now the agriculture sector experienced some growth and expansion because the total aggregate area under cultivation was rising, but the agricultural productivity was reducing, because the agriculture productivity is the ratio of the agricultural inputs to the agricultural outputs. ऑलराइट, मतलब कि जितने रिसोर्सेज हमने लगा रखे हैं एग्रीकल्चर में, क्या हमें उतना ही आउटपुट मिल रहा है? क्या वही एक्सपेक्टेड रिजल्ट था? विच वॉज ऑब्वियसली नॉट द केस ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम. इट वॉज लो. द एग्रीकल्चर वॉज stagnant, and the 5 reasons for that are policies of land settlement, lack of irrigation facilities, lack of proper inputs, lack of investment, and commercialization of agriculture. Policies, irrigation, input, investment, commercialization. Policies, irrigation, input, investment, commercialization. Now, the first reason is policy of land and revenue settlement. Now, what happened was that there was a zamindar who acted as an intermediary between the government and the cultivator of the soil. Now he had to pay a certain sum of money to the government at a fixed date, and failing that deadline, he could lose his rights as zamindar. So he extorted the zamindars. They extorted as much money as they could from the cultivators of the soil as zamindars and pay to the government, and more than they had to pay to the government. So this extortion of money led to immense misery and social tension amongst the cultivators, since the zamindars were only interested in collecting the rent regardless of the economic condition of the cultivators. Now this discouraged the cultivators to produce less, and hence the productivity reduced, which led to stagnant agriculture. The second point is lack of irrigational facilities. Now the monsoon dependent, the produce was monsoon dependent, since there were irrigational facilities which were available to very limited people. The poor farmers, they could not access it, and most of the produce was mainly monsoon dependent on one hand, and secondly also no effort was made by the government to overcome this problem. So both of them led to stagnant agriculture. The third is lack of proper inputs. So technology, irrigational facilities and negligible use of fertilizers is something which was very scarce. The technology was not available, and there was lack of advancement. The limited irrigational facilities and fertilizers also, people were, maybe they did not know about it, or they did not have any money to purchase it. So the lack of usage of proper inputs like technology, irrigation facilities and fertilizers also led to stagnant agriculture. The third is lack of investment. There was lack of investment in terracing, flood control, drainage and desalinization of soil. There were a lot of farmers who could access it, even though they were scarcely available. But most of the farmers in India, they were small and they were very poor, small scale farmers, all right. So they could not access this, and there was lack of investment by the government in these sectors, which led to low productivity as compared to what they could do. Commercialization of agriculture. Now, initially, before the British rule, the farmers used to grow crops like rice and wheat for their own consumption. But afterwards, in order to feed the British industry with cheap raw materials, the Indian farmers, they were forced to grow cash crops, commercial crops, which could be the crops which were produced for sale in the market. And one of the main of the crops was indigo. All right. And now, instead of producing food crops, they were now producing cash crops, which led to commercialization of agriculture, right? You will think it is a good thing that now they can earn more, since they have left subsistence farming and they have done something beyond subsistence farming, but it turned out to be no help to the farmers, and it eventually turned out to be a burden on them, because the commercialization of agriculture not only increased the burden of high revenues on the poor farmers, but also it led to India to face shortage of food grains and various other resources. So on one hand, if they were being taught something really good, on the other hand, it turned out to be vain as well, because it did not do any help to them. Talking about the second sector, industrial sector, a very, very important question comes, which is the system. What is the twofold policy introduced by the Britishers in the industrial sector? What is the systematic deindustrialization policy with two motives? It is a very important question which comes with 3 marks, right? And this policy, basically the primary motive of the colonial government behind this policy of systematic deindustrialization was twofold. First of all, it was to turn India to an exporter of raw material for the modern industries in Britain. Alright, so it was to reduce India to a status of mere exporter of raw materials for the upcoming industries in Britain. Earlier, India was exporting what? It was exporting finished products, handicraft products, but now it was being changed to raw material, primary products. And not only to sell it in the whole world, to export it in the entire world, but the main motive was to export raw material to feed the British Revolution. Okay. Second is importer of finished products and make India a market for British products. Alright. So it was to turn India into a sprawling market for finished products of those industries, British industries, so that their continued expansion could be ensured at their maximum advantage. Alright. Importer बना दिया finished products का. What India used to import before was the raw material, right? Primary products. But now it was vice versa. It was importing finished products, and Britishers ensured that they are importing the products from Britain, mostly from Britain, so that they could find a good market for their products, and whatever expansion they were making was at their complete advantage. The condition of industrial sector was also not very good at that time because of the importing of British products. The handicraft industry declined. Alright, handicraft industry declined. There was less role of modern industry at that point of time. There were very few capital good industries. There was less growth rate and less role of public sector also. Let me explain them to you. So the first point, which is decline of handicraft industry. What happened was the Britishers, they imposed huge taxes on the export of the handicrafts from India. जिसकी वजह से क्या हुआ था, handicraft industry जो थी वो पूरी तरह से collapse हो गई थी. And there were many people who were solely dependent on handicraft business for their livelihood. But then their business completely shut down, and it led to unemployment in the country at a very large scale. Not only unemployment was the problem because of the decline of handicraft industry, but also जो domestic needs थी, which were being fulfilled by handicraft industry, जैसे clothes थे या कुछ और products थे जो कि उनकी needs fulfill कर रहे थे. The collapse of handicraft industry failed to fulfill their demands. और ये जो demand थी, they were met by increasing the imports from Britain. In Britain, the revolution was going on, and from there the products were imported. And this need of the domestic market was actually met by these people of Britain. Not only they were cheap, but then also they were fulfilling their needs. So इसमें British agenda जो था वो successful हो रहा था. Second point है less role of modern industry. Now what happened was the second half of the 19th century, modern industry began to take root in India, but its progress remained very slow. So initially this development was actually confined to only cotton and jute textiles. जो ये modern industry थी, इनकी जो progress थी वो बहुत ज़्यादा slow थी. And these industries were only confined to cotton and jute textiles. Cotton industries were mainly dominated by the Indians in the western part of the country, right? Maharashtra, Gujarat. In Maharashtra and Gujarat में cotton were grown more, but jute mills were mainly located and established in Bengal. धीरे धीरे करके टाटा आयरन एंड स्टील कंपनी भी आ गई 1907 में, and there were other few industries like sugar, cement, paper which came up after the Second World War, but still because of their less role they were able to contribute less to the progress of industrial sector, and its progress remained very slow. There were a very few capital good industries. Now what are capital good industries? Capital good industries वो होती हैं जो कि प्रोड्यूस करती है मशीन और टूल्स जो इन टर्न प्रोड्यूस करती है गुड्स, आर्टिकल्स फॉर करंट कंजम्पशन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर हम लें कोई ऐसी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फर्म है जो कि एसी के पार्ट्स प्रोड्यूस करती है, एंड देन देयर इज दिस एसी कंपनी जो कि इन पार्ट्स को असेंबल करती है, एंड देन इट गिव्स अस. सो दैट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फर्म इज़ अ कैपिटल गुड इंडस्ट्री जो कि ऐसे प्रोडक्ट्स प्रोड्यूस कर रही है, ऐसे टूल्स प्रोड्यूस कर रही है जिससे इन टर्न हम कुछ चीज़ बना रहे हैं विच इज़ देन बीइंग यूज्ड फॉर द कंज्यूमर consumption. So this establishment of there was establishment of a very few manufacturing units, and also जितने firms establish हो गए थे इस time पे, वो जो loss था which was due to the collapse of the handicraft industry, they could not cover it. Less growth rate. Now the growth rate of the industrial sector was very low. Progress और contribution दोनों ही slow रहा है हर field में, and the growth rate was also very slow. Industrial sector contribution to GDP remained less. Less role of public sector. Now the public sector, which is when we talk about the government's contribution to industrial sector, it was also very less, because government was at that time it was generally, they were concerned about their own home country, Britain, right? They were hardly interested in the economic development of our Indian economy, right? तो जब उस टाइम की बात करें, so it was mainly confined to, or they were mainly interested in sectors like railway, power generation, communication, ports, which only helped their agenda, which only propagated their agenda of maybe, importing and exporting the British products, and they were rarely doing anything to contribute to the public sector, industrial sector from their side. So the role of public sector also remained less, which led to stagnant industrial, not stagnant but slow progress of industrial sector, which led to slow progress of industrial sector. नेक्स्ट इज फॉरेन सेक्टर. ना फॉरेन सेक्टर में एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ आती है कि जब हम फॉरेन सेक्टर की बात करते हैं तो फॉरेन सेक्टर में था क्या बेसिकली. व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट फॉरेन सेक्टर, वी टॉक अबाउट द ट्रेड विच वाज हैपनिंग विद द countries, with the other countries, with our neighboring countries or with the other countries across the globe. कैसा हाल था हमारी कंट्री के इम्पोर्ट और एक्सपोर्ट का, राइट? तो वी टॉक अबाउट द बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट्स, जहाँ पे हम अपनी ट्रांजैक्शंस की बात करते हैं विद द अदर कंट्रीज. क्या सिचुएशन थी उस टाइम? सो इन दिस वी हैव 3 पॉइंट्स: कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ ट्रेड, डायरेक्शन ऑफ ट्रेड एंड लार्ज एक्सपोर्ट सरप्लस. कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ ट्रेड में हम बात करते हैं कि जो हमारी ट्रेड थी, किस चीज़ की ट्रेड होती थी, व्हाट प्रोडक्ट्स डिड वी ट्रेड, डिड वी एक्सपोर्ट, व्हाट प्रोडक्ट्स डिड वी इम्पोर्ट. डायरेक्शन ऑफ ट्रेड, कौन कौन सी कंट्रीज से हमारी जो ट्रेड थी वो ज़्यादा होती थी, विच कंट्रीज ट्रेडेड विद अस द मोस्ट और वी ट्रेडेड द मोस्ट. लार्ज एक्सपोर्ट सरप्लस. नाउ दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट and I'll explain in the next slide. So the first point is composition of trade. That means earlier before the advent of British rule, we were exporting the finished handicraft products mainly, right? And we were importing the raw material. But now, because of the restrictive policies introduced by the British people, introduced by this colonial government, the composition of trade, the products in which we were, type of products in which the Indian people who were trading completely changed. It became the opposite, right? We became exporter of primary products like raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, indigo, jute, etc. And we became importer of finished consumer products and capital goods. We were importing clothes, we were importing capital goods which were like light machinery, and all of this was produced in the factories of Britain only, right? The whole composition of trade completely got changed. It got the other way around. Second point is direction of trade. Direction of trade, किस किस countries के साथ हम trade करते थे. Now because the British people were ruling us and the colonial government had taken the monopoly rights, they had monopoly control over the India's exports and imports. More than half of the India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain, and the rest of it was allowed with other countries like China, Sri Lanka, and Iran. Otherwise, most of it was mainly headed or mainly concentrated to Britain only. And despite the fact that we were actually importing the finished products and we were exporting the primary products, India was generating a large export surplus. मतलब जो हम खरीद रहे थे बाकी कंट्रीज से, वो उसमें जो हम एक्सपेंस इनकर कर रहे थे, इट वॉज लेस देन what we were earning by exporting our raw material to other countries. Raw material सेल कर कर भी हम एक लार्ज एक्सपोर्ट सरप्लस जनरेट कर रहे थे, विच इज़ अ बिग डील, राइट? एंड दिस एक्सपोर्ट surplus did not result in any gold flow of gold or silver in the Indian economy. कोई बेनिफिट नहीं हो रहा था इंडियन इकोनॉमी का. ऐसा कुछ कॉलोनियल गवर्नमेंट कर नहीं रही थी कि हमारी इंडियन इकोनॉमी इन्हांस हो, कुछ बेटर हो, इसके अंदर कुछ अच्छा टेक्नोलॉजी आए, because they were only concerned about their home country, they were only concerned about their expenses and all. So they never paid heed to what India's economic conditions were, right? So they used that export surplus for three purposes: for paying expenses incurred by offices in Britain, the expenses of war, which were fought by the British government, and the import of invisible items. They used the export surplus which was generated by our economy by exporting primary products on expenses incurred in offices, on wars fought by them, and on the import of invisible items. Now on this the question comes that what led to drain of India's wealth? So here you have to write these 3 points are the restrictive policies of Britain which changed the composition of trade. The monopoly, the colonial government had monopoly control over India's exports and imports, which led to the change in direction of trade. And despite the generation of large export surplus, still there was no flow of gold or silver. Basically, the money was not used to enhance or to invest in the Indian economy, which altogether led to the drain of Indian wealth. And it is a very important characteristic by exporting primary products, you were generating a large export surplus, which was anyways not used by the Indian economy, and it finally led to the drain of India's wealth. These 3 points are important. You have to write them. Now demographic profile. Now demographic profile is the demographic profile means of any country means that when we are studying the population of that country on the basis of their literacy levels, on the basis of their age, how the health facilities are being provided in that country, and a lot of other factors, the life expectancy, right? So we will talk about what was the demographic profile of India at the point of the rule of the colonial period, during the colonial period. Or first point is low literacy level, second point is lack of public health facilities, third is high mortality rate, low life expectancy, demographic transition. Now there are these 5 points, and mostly in these 5 points we only have data. आपको सिर्फ ये 5 चीज़ों के डेटा याद करना है. लो लिटरेसी लेवल, पब्लिक हेल्थ फैसिलिटीज़, मोर्टालिटी रेट क्या था, लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी कितनी थी, और डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन क्या हुआ, विच आई एक्सप्लेन प्रॉपरली. बट लिटरेसी लेवल was very low. Okay, overall it was 16% in the entire country, and among the women it was very less, which is 7%, which was more less. Lack of public health facilities. Now these public health facilities either were unavailable to the majority of population or they were inadequate, right? और अवेलेबल थी भी तो ये inadequate थी. Now consequently what happened was that water and airborne diseases spread, which took huge toll on life. There were a lot of deaths at that point of time because water and airborne diseases were spreading and the public health facilities were inadequate or were unavailable to people of the country. The lack of public health facilities caused miserable condition of people in the health sector as well. High mortality rate. Infant mortality rate earlier was 218 per thousand and at present it is 40 per thousand. So you see the difference. That overall mortality rate was so high at that point of time and it was so alarming, 218 per thousand, and now it is 40. Third is low life expectancy. Earlier it was 44 years and now it is 68. That means, oh, by the way, mortality rate means the rate at which the children before the age of 1 die. Alright, at the scale of per thousand children. And life expectancy is the average period of years or average period of time that a human is expected to live. So earlier it was just 44 years and at present it is 68 years. Demographic transition. Now one thing I want to do before moving on to the demographic transition is that इस क्वेश्चन में अगर एक क्वेश्चन आया तो इसमें सिर्फ डेटा है, इसमें डेटा के अलावा कुछ नहीं है, तो फिर डेटा तो आपको याद करना ही पड़ेगा क्योंकि इसमें कोई एक्सप्लेनेशन नहीं है. सो लर्न द डेटा प्रॉपरली. और दूसरी बात कि क्वेश्चन कितने ही मार्क्स का है, सारे पॉइंट्स लिखने हैं एंड एट द एंड यू हैव टू मेंशन डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन. नाउ लेट मी टेल व्हाट वाज डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन. Before the 1921, now it has been divided into basically 3 parts, 3 years mainly. Before the year of 1921, the population growth was slow, okay, and also it was uneven. मतलब कभी बढ़ती थी कभी कम होती थी, कभी बढ़ती थी कभी कम होती थी, तो स्टेबल नहीं थी कि हाँ बढ़ ही रही है या कमी हो रही है. So it was, the population growth was slow also and it was uneven also कि कभी बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गई फिर कम हो गई, बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गई कम हो गई. After the year of 1921, also the population growth was slow, but there was a consistent rise in it. मतलब population growth जो थी वो बढ़ी ही जा रही थी. The rate of growth of population was at a consistent rise. Third is, after 1955, population growth rate इतना ज़्यादा बढ़ गया था, like there was an explosion and there was high rate of population growth. तो 1921 से पहले uneven था, 1921 के बाद एक consistent rise आ गया और फिर 1955 के बाद तो इतना ज़्यादा बढ़ गया population growth rate that there was an explosion in the population growth. So we can categorize this demographic transition as a series of stages that Indian economy, that our country went through when transitioning from the non-industrial to industrial sector. ठीक है, 1921 से पहले अनइवन था, 1921 के बाद सेकेंड स्टेज है जिसमें देयर वाज अ कंसिस्टेंट राइज, फिर 1955 के बाद तो बढ़ ही गया वो एट अ लार्ज स्केल पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ. The fifth sector that we will talk about is occupational structure. Now what happened, what is the meaning of occupational structure is कि हर सेक्टर में कितने लोग काम कर रहे हैं, the distribution of the workforce across the different sectors and the industries. So occupational structure जो था इंडिया का उसमें सिर्फ 2 ही पॉइंट्स हैं. पहला है कि the share of workforce in the 3 sectors and the growing regional variation. शेयर ऑफ वर्कफोर्स इन 3 सेक्टर्स मतलब कि प्राइमरी, सेकेंडरी और टर्शरी सेक्टर में क्या क्या पॉपुलेशन की डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन थी, कितने कितने लोग उन तीनों सेक्टर्स में काम करते थे. And growing regional variation means that how sometimes or how the concentration of certain workforce was in a particular sector in a certain area, whereas in the others it was not. Like share of workforce in three sectors, agriculture में 70 to 75% था, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में 10% वर्कफोर्स काम कर रही थी, सर्विस सेक्टर में 15 to 20% वर्कफोर्स काम कर रही थी. ठीक है, this is data, you have to learn this data, there is nothing to explain in it. ग्रोइंग रीजनल वेरिएशन में आता है कि मद्रास, बॉम्बे एंड बंगाल, there was decline in agriculture sector there because in Madras, Bombay and Bengal there was a rise in manufacturing and service sector. जो लोग थे they were prefer or they were the workforce was more inclined towards manufacturing and service sector, whereas in Orissa, Rajasthan and Punjab there was an increase in the workforce in the agriculture sector. मतलब उड़ीसा, राजस्थान और पंजाब में जो लोग थे वो एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में बढ़े जा रहे थे. द वर्कफोर्स इन दैट सेक्टर वाज ऑन अ कंसिस्टेंट राइज. दैट्स इट फॉर द ऑक्यूपेशनल स्ट्रक्चर. द फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज दैट रेलवेज, और रेलवेज का सेटअप एस्टैब्लिश करने के पीछे ब्रिटिश मोटिव भी था, बट अलॉन्ग दैट साइड इट आल्सो हैव द पीपल ऑफ इंडिया. So British motive was to mobilize army within the small parts of India, कि इंडिया के जो छोटे छोटे पार्ट्स हैं वहाँ पे आर्मी जो है वो चले जाए. सेकेंड इज ड्रॉ आउट रॉ मटेरियल्स फ्रॉम द कंट्री साइड. जो इंडिया के जो कच्ची कच्ची जगह है ना वहाँ पे से सामान लाना, रॉ मटेरियल लाना बहुत मुश्किल होता था लोगों के लिए. ठीक है, फॉर द ब्रिटिशर्स. बट with the help of railways they were easily able to draw out, they were able to bring the raw materials from those countrysides to the ports, to the sea lands very easily. How did it help people was that during rainy seasons it was difficult to reach to the rural areas, क्योंकि वहाँ पे जो all weather roads थी they were very less, और वहाँ की roads जो थी बहुत कच्ची थी, ख़राब हो जाती थी बारिश के टाइम पे. But with the help of railways it made easy for people to travel to the or reach out to the rural areas. Second point is help during natural calamities, not during famines. There were a lot of people who would die because there was a lot of lack of facilities which were available to them, since they were not able to reach out to these areas very easily. But with the help of railways, famines हो चाहे कुछ भी natural calamity हो, people, the mortality rate of people actually reduced. Oh sorry, the death rate of people reduced because of these natural calamities, because government was able to reach out to these areas. Basically the people, government did not care. Roads, the people were able to undertake long distances to travel, thereby overcoming the geographical or the cultural barriers. And at the same time it also helped foster commercialization of agriculture in India. Now आपको लग रहा होगा कि commercialization हुई है agriculture की, और the farmers have actually produced beyond, for self consumption, not only for subsistence farming, but they are producing for sale of crops in the market. But it had an adverse impact, क्योंकि ये जो commercialization थी agriculture की, it had a negative impact on the self-sufficiency of the village economies in India. The volume of Indian exports were expanded, right? ना produce कर रहे थे at a large scale, that the exports were increasing, but its benefits as usual were rarely given, or it really accrued to the Indian people. So although the introduction of railways and roadways helped people, but then the huge economic loss which happened was outweighed, and the benefits, the social benefits which were created, which were given to people, all went in vain. Third is electric telegraph. Now, this electric telegraph helped to maintain law and order in the economy. It was an expensive system. It was expensive, but it helped to maintain law and order. Fourth is postal services. Now, although it helped to actually help to send letters and communicate, was serving a useful public purpose wherein people could actually communicate with each other, but again it was inadequate. Ports and sea lanes. So the ports and sea lanes में यह आता है कि उससे trade easy हो गई थी. Along with this development of roads and railways, the colonial government, it also took measures for developing the ports and sea lanes, the inland trade and the sea lanes. And these measures were actually satisfactory because it helped to increase the trade and helped to actually make the trade easier. The last thing is critical appraisal of the policies which were undertaken by the colonial government. Now, शायद मैंने ये वीडियो के स्टार्टिंग में बताया था या मैं भूल गई हूँ, नहीं बताया तो अभी बता देती हूँ कि जो क्रिटिकल अप्रेजल है वो 6 मार्क्स के लिए आता है. 3 पॉइंट्स फॉर मेरिट्स, 3 पॉइंट्स फॉर डीमेरिट्स. और पूरी जो सिलेबस है इंडियन इकोनॉमी का, हर चैप्टर में ही क्रिटिकल अप्रेजल होता है. वॉट एवर द चैप्टर इज अबाउट, देयर इज क्रिटिकल अप्रेजल वेयर यू हैव टू राइट द मेरिट्स एंड डीमेरिट्स, क्योंकि क्रिटिकल अप्रेजल है ना, आपको बताना है कि क्या अच्छा हुआ और क्या बुरा हुआ. ठीक है, तो उसमें आता है हमारा क्रिटिकल अप्रेजल जो कि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है. सो यू शुड ऑलवेज डू इट. एंड इन दिस चैप्टर वी हैव ऑफ व्हाट ऑफ द पॉलिसीज व्हिच वर अंडरटेकन बाय द कॉलोनी. पॉइंट्स है ये सारे जो हैं वो एनसीईआरटी के हैं, मैंने नहीं लिखे बट आप अपने भी पॉइंट्स ऐड कर. पॉजिटिव इफेक्ट्स मैंने अपने आप ही लिखे हैं, बट यू कैन ऑल्सो मेक देम राइट योर ओन पॉइंट्स. First is agriculture. In agriculture, there was commercialization of agriculture. There were farmers who sold cash crops, and they were not only producing for self-consumption, but they were also producing for sale in the market. And they learned something new because earlier they were doing subsistence farming, producing at a small scale, and then they were rarely left with something to sell in the market. But now they were producing for sale in the market only more of cash crops. Infrastructure, electric telegraph helped to maintain law and order. There were roads and railways which also helped the people to cross or undertake long distances, which helped to reduce the death rate during the natural calamity like famines and all. So add those roads, railways, electric telegraph, roads, right? Roads, the next point is roads. So it helped to reach out to the rural areas during the rainy season and helped during the colonial calamities. And railways, people were able to undertake long distances, thereby breaking the geographical barriers. So these 4 points I've written. These are some tips. You can read these tips yourself. I'll read it. Write all the points irrespective of the marks assigned to the question. Do all the back exercise question after every chapter of the NCERT book, of course, because question मेरे board exam में भी question directly it came from NCERT book, and the answer to that question was not mentioned in the book. It was not, although word था but उसका मतलब नहीं दे रखा था. It was like a term, but it was not there in the book, but it was there in the NCERT back exercise. तो आपको ढंग से करनी चाहिए. And get into a habit of making flowcharts for every chapter, क्योंकि इंडियन इकोनॉमी के सारे पॉइंट्स हैं वो flowcharts बनाकर ही याद होंगे. पैराग्राफ फॉर्म में लिख कर रहोगे तो मार्क्स भी नहीं मिलेंगे और याद भी नहीं होगा. It will simplify your work. It will make you remember all the parts of the chapters and all the points. So simplify your work, okay? So read these points. Thank you so much guys for watching this video. Make sure you like this video and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be coming up with the videos of other chapters as well. So make sure you check out my channel and subscribe to my YouTube channel.